Hi everyone. So today I wanted to share with you the communion antiphon for this Sunday. So as always, I'll sing it through first and then I will talk about it. The disciples recognized the Lord Jesus in the breaking of the bread. Alleluia. All right, so the words of this communion antiphon come from Sunday's Gospel, which is the road to Emmaus. So Jesus appears to the two disciples on the road to Emmaus, who recognize him only when he breaks the bread. That's a really important point there. And it's kind of funny because this seems like such a simple statement, right? Like the disciples recognize the Lord Jesus in the breaking of the bread, but it packs so much meaning for us. And really, I think, poses the question to our hearts: do we recognize the Lord Jesus in the breaking of the bread? Do we recognize him in the Holy Eucharist? And I think during this time of quarantine, when we aren't able to go to Mass and we aren't able to receive communion, it kind of occurred to me as I was kind of thinking and praying with this antiphon that it really kind of gives us a period of time to really examine our response to the Eucharistic love of Jesus and to kind of check in with our hearts and say, like, how is our Eucharistic devotion? How strong is our devotion to our Eucharistic Jesus? So the following questions kind of stood out to me as far as ways that we can kind of just examine our hearts in this regard and kind of see where things are at with our Eucharistic devotion. So first of all, it's like, do we believe that he is truly present in the Eucharist, body, blood, soul, and divinity? Do we believe that, first of all, in our hearts? But then what I think can be even more challenging is do we recognize the presence of Jesus in the breaking of the bread in the Eucharist to the point of living our lives according to that belief? Because it's one thing, right, to know intellectually that yes, like he is present in the Eucharist, body, blood, soul, and divinity, but do we really live our lives according to that belief? Do we live like as if God is a distant reality, or do we live knowing that he is present here on earth with us in the Eucharist 24/7? Do we allow the immensity of this love that he shows us in the Eucharist to move our hearts? Do we strive to receive him at Mass with great reverence and anticipation and love? And do we prepare our hearts before we receive him? And then finally, do we spend time with our Eucharistic Lord, really confiding in him as our dearest friend? And so now during this time of quarantine, we can really just ask Jesus for the grace to sharpen our hunger and our love for him in the Eucharist during this time when we can't receive him, so that when the day comes that we can go to Mass again and we can receive him in the Eucharist again, we can give him a reception in our hearts that is the most beautiful and loving and reverent, like more beautiful, loving, and reverent than it has ever been before in our lives, to give him that reception when we can receive him again. It's kind of like, I know the church and scriptures and a lot of saints have compared our souls and our hearts to like a house, right? And Jesus is the guest of our souls, the guest of the home of our hearts in the Eucharist. He comes to us as a guest. And so we can kind of think of this time of quarantine as a time to really get the home of our hearts and the home of our souls in order for him, to kind of clean house, so to speak, and to decorate the home of our heart with virtue and prayer and sacrifices, so that when he is able to come into us in sacramental Holy Communion, that he will just find, we can just give him the most beautiful reception ever. All right, so just to conclude, I'll sing it for you one more time. The disciples recognized the